Okay. Hi, everybody. Welcome. If you want to go ahead and come on in and grab a seat. I'm Cassie Lawhead. I'm the Vice Chair of the Montalvo Community Council, District 6. Our esteemed chair will not be able to join us this evening, so I will do my best to keep us on track. We have our awesome Commander Kane here. He's going to do our crime report. Our council person is here, Mr. Jim Duran. We're going to get to learn about a new housing project that's happening in our district. And then we have Amy Dugan here from the Bright organization talking about overdose prevention. And then at the end of the meeting, those maps that we were passing out, we're going to talk about future development in the immediate area surrounding us, where we're sitting right now. What's the potential for this area, and what recommendations our board has made, and what the future might look like around here. So we're really glad you're here, and if you're joining us online, we're extremely glad that you're here. The Montalvo Community Council is a volunteer-led organization. We are all volunteers. We're just a small group of people who believe in local politics, that this is the place where you can have your voice heard and make a difference in your city. So we want you to be involved with us. You've already found us if you're watching us on the video, because you're on the blog right now watching it. But we are also in Old Montalvo. So I'm going to go ahead and invite Commander Kane up. 6:35, almost on the dot. We're ready for you. Please, anyone who's presenting tonight, I'll keep reminding you, but be sure to speak into the microphone, because even if the people in the room can hear you, we need your voice to be recorded on the video. Okay?
Hi. Good evening. Thanks again for having me. See some familiar faces. So I'm Matt Kane. I've been your district commander now almost 3 years. Chief Schindler started the program with each of the districts to get a commander involved, just to have you reach out directly, and a lot of times we can get the ball moving faster than other parts of the department. Kind of have some motivating factors. So anyways, I'm gonna go over some crime stuff. I have 10 minutes, but if there's questions or whatever, or I have to get out pretty soon afterwards, but I have a few minutes after. If not, Lisa has my email, and then it's mkane, it's so M and then CAIN at venturapd.org. So I'm pretty responsive to email, give me an email or any questions. So real quick, we do the uniform crime reporting monthly. I've talked about this. These are the things that the FBI has determined. There's 7 areas that they've determined that we're going to report crime on. So we have theft, we have that are like shoplifts, we have the burglary style, we have motor vehicle theft, commercial burglary, aggravated assault, residential burglary, and arson. Here's the deal with my big news for today is the UCR stuff is now, we're totally getting away from that, and we're going to a national system. It's called NIBRS. So I'm going to pass out some maps, and instead of having just, say a couple dozen dots on a map, the NIBRS, what's happened is it's if you have a crime, but then you have multiple crimes that happen in that crime, they also get reported. So it's like it's 4, 5, 6 times as much crime data. What's also reported, which I'll show you, is all of our narcotic-related crimes, some vandalism stuff, some random weapon stuff that we keep track of internally, but now is going into a national database. And this will make sense when I show this to you, but from April 5th to May 2nd, in the NIBRS group, 164 crimes reported in your district. Yeah. In the UCR reporting, 42. So that's what we're looking at. Going back with the UCR stuff, from February into March, there was 36. Now again, this is the UCR, the FBI 7. From 3/8 to 4/4, 45, and then in this, like I said, in this period, 4/5 to 5/2, you had 42. So I'm gonna pass some of this out. I made some of these copies just so you can kind of take a look. And moving forward, this is what we're going to be reporting. So if you're like, oh my gosh, why did our crime jump like astronomically? Well, this is why.
So, do you want to share down there?
And then I'll go over a little bit of the. So what we do how we've been looking at these is more. I know lots of dots, right, with the other one. We look for more trends, and this is what I always say. So you're always going to have your thefts, shoplifts. I mean, of course, there's a lot of retail and different areas in our district that get hit with the thefts. We did have 6 cars stolen from April 5th to May 2nd, which isn't great. Again, though, trends with cars as far as type of cars and location, there wasn't really any. Commercial burglary, you're going to get those with a closed business. So we have a lot of businesses in our district. Residential burglary, those aren't good. That's a house, right? And I looked into this one, and it was over off Hill Street, and it was a daytime burglary. Someone broke in and broke a window and came in and took stuff and left. Not good. But one is one's better than a bunch. And then the arson, it was some property that was burned and probably vagrant related, and there was an arrest behind it. So let me go through these again. So our aggravated assaults, which sounds terrible, most of those get reported. They're domestic violence incidents, so not good, but they're pretty common throughout the city. The one aggravated assault on here was at Chase Bank on Victoria. We did have a shooting. A guy shot at another car, didn't hit anyone, but again, the detectives are working on that, and they have a named suspect. So that's the kind of the aggravated assault that kind of sticks out to me. And then, like I said, the arson that set fire to some property in a shopping cart that contained trash, and it was put out, and the person was arrested. We go through our commercial burglaries, public storage. There was quite a few. That's kind of, people get in there at night when things are locked up. And then we'll go through our motor vehicle theft. So Inez, we had one, Shenandoah, Mariano, Bryce. So what I wasn't super happy with was we had trended way down in our catalytic converter thefts. And we're back up. In this stat period, we had 5. That's not good. So those come out as thefts, but if you've ever had a catalytic converter stolen, it's huge pain, because not only do you have to replace catalytic converter, but everything that comes with it. So you're looking at thousands of dollars. They're trying to get the precious metals out of the catalytic converter, so your $3,000 or $4,000 theft, they're getting $50, $100. How you deal with something like that, as far as to distract, is park somewhere that's more lit, park in your driveway, park somewhere that the car is not as dark, and then just be alert, be attentive. As it's pretty loud when they're cutting the catalytic converters out. And then, of course, sensitive alarms on cars if they go off. We did have a trend for a while, like the Priuses were good, and then they all also hitting the SUVs because they could get under them. But now it doesn't seem like, with new emission laws and stuff, that a lot of the catalytic converters have all the same metal in them. So there's really it's just a crime of opportunity. We had a gas siphon, which, with gas at $5 a gallon, I'm surprised we only had one. And then that was it, as far as, if you look on the list there, as far as it goes. Again, trended down in this 30 days from the last 30 days, which is good. But you flip the page and you look at the NIBR stats. That's kind of what we're going to be looking at as we move forward. So pushing on time, so I'll open it up for questions. So
And we've called on that, and if we can find it, then,
the motorhome.
enforcement should be able to find it. It's parked on Hummingbird, it disappears for a day or two, it comes back. And, and the concern is, what are they doing in the neighborhood? We don't know who they are, and so it's kind of like that neighborhood watch thing.
Yeah, so email me, and then it's M Kane, and then @venturapd.org.
Okay.
And I supervise also the parking cadets, and believe it or not, they go out with a huge list and they try and hit down the road. So you have oversized vehicle enforcement. We can do with that, and there's also 72-hour parking that we can enforce. Yeah, give me a holler, and I'll let the I'll
He seems to know the law.
yeah.
So he moves. The one
Yeah.
that I saw with the little sticker thing.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like.
He had moved up by that night.
Well, he doesn't, you know, he's all on the up and up. He isn't, you know, like trashing anything, but.
Yeah, it's suspicious though. I understand. So, like I said, email me. I'll try and get that back on the cadets' radar, or put some focus patrols for our officers. What I can do for any, I had a question about the vagrancy. So I supervise our patrol task force. As Councilman Duran knows, we work daily, you know, with vagrants and the complaints. We have 8 officers only assigned to patrol task force. So it's 2 corporals and 6 officers, and then a sergeant. So technically 9 sworn. And now they're working 7 days a week. So I have my PTF out there all 7 days. They don't work in the evenings. Most of the vagrancy calls are happening daytime. But we can, you know, like I said, we can highlight areas too with them.
Can you tell us again the name of that task force?
Yeah, it's Patrol Task Force. It's PTF for short.
Okay, so that's not the Beautify and Maintain.
No, so Beautify and Maintain is through the city itself, but they work with PTF, and I can also get a hold of them if you need something.
So the best thing is to just contact.
Yeah, yes, Beautify and Maintain you can find on the city website, and they're pretty responsive, and they'll get things done.
Great.
Mm-hmm.
One other thing, how are we doing with keeping that, the riverbed cleaned out from the homeless people?
So we got back in there because it was pretty muddy from the rains last week, and we're never gonna completely stop it, but we're getting that back down in there. We brought some representatives from the county and got some people some services, and basically our portion of it, the city, because you have some county areas too that we're not responsible for, and you also have Caltrans. But our area, we got some people some help and moved some people along, and again, as of a week ago, that we didn't have any camps in our area. Again, that's something that.
And then there's one other thing, you're so glad I came.
Yeah.
That on North Bank, and you turn on North Bank and you're going onto the freeway, and then there's that frontage road. Someone is using that area as a dumping ground.
Oh, they're living back.
Are they living? Yeah.
Right off the freeway.
Go back in.
Yeah, it's probably most likely Caltrans, but I can direct some resources there. You just
Because it's really getting bad. It's like pickup loads of
Yeah, I understand.
stuff is in there, and I think you're right. I think they're.
yeah, most likely probably someone's using it as a home. But we work with Caltrans, and we can deal with it.
What happened? When we moved here 30 years ago, there were people that checked that took care of the freeways, did meridians. I mean, it may have been convicts. I don't know. I think my son-in-law was in charge of work release and work furlough.
Yeah.
And they took the guys out there. But I don't see people out cleaning the sides of the freeways, and even our meridians. It's like, what happened to this? And what happened to our,
Yeah, with
getting rid of those potholes?
Actually, I'm
State-
going to take over. Can I take over
state
on that one
state
for you?
funding. Go
I
ahead.
would like to segue to that because we in Montalvo have gotten a bunch of new plants and different things, and we were told that for the first 3 months, the landscapers will be responsible to come and water, but then beyond that, it's going to be our responsibility as a community. So stay tuned with the Montalvo Community Council. We're going to do our best to try to keep our own neighborhood taken care of. We can at least claim our neighborhood and try to help. But
Do the freeway.
right. For people who were at home, the questions were about motorhomes that are parked on the roads. And so we said one thing is email Commander Kane, or we will put information about the Beautify and Maintain organization that's through the city. We'll put that on the blog so you can have quick links to get there. The more we as citizens report and the information gets there, the more attention it will get.
Sure.
Right? So I know I had a business owner that had contacted us about a person at the far end of Grand Avenue that's kind of set up shop down there. And Commander Kane said that that's definitely something that they can address. And so we'll be doing our best to make those things happen.
So let me know.
Okay?
Speaking of Caltrans, if you're gonna report anything, can we report that sign that's been hanging off the freeway?
I think it's gone. I looked for it. Is it still there? Okay. Miss Marilyn was reminding us again about the Channel Island sign that has fallen over.
It's a directional sign.
Yes.
Of course, for everybody. It's been there for bloody 3 years.
Yeah.
And I've been calling, but it's interesting
Again, it's the issue with Caltrans. It's what part is the Caltrans and what part is City of, it sounds like City of Ventura picked up after themselves, so that's great. We have to move on. We're 3 minutes behind. And it's my job to keep us on track, so. The new database that we're going to be getting information from is nationwide. Okay, Councilman Duran, we're so glad that you're here with us. Would you please come up and share with us about what's going on in the city? Thank you. Thank you so much, Commander Kane.
Thank you so much, Commander Kane. I got to tell you, we have an incredible police force and a police task force, and I have a couple things, actually quite a few things I wanted to share with you. Streets and sidewalks is always a big issue, and so I wanted to share with you that Bristol Road to the east is going to be done by December of this year, so Merry Christmas. From Johnson east. I have a whole bunch of stuff. You guys want to ask me questions at the end? And then I also wanted to let you know that one of the big questions was, we have the CIP, which is shows where all the capital improvements are going to be throughout District 6 and throughout the whole city. And I was looking through it, and I noticed that Johnson Drive above Telephone Road wasn't on that CIP plan. And so I had a bunch of people call me and say, when is this going to be done? So I called and checked with Phil Nelson, who is our Public Works Manager, and he said, that's not on the CIP plan, but that will be done in-house. Our team will do that in-house, and I just want to let you know it's already being done. It's they're already grading for it, and I'm excited about that. Other thing that you need to know about is when you do run into a pothole, there is a pothole hotline, which is 805-652-4590. Once again, that's 805-652-4590. So if you do run into a pothole, please call them and let them know, and they'll add that to their list, so they'll come out and repair that. If for some reason you damage your tire, let them know that as well, because the city will cover that cost for you. I wanted to touch base on the Citizens Police Academy. I just graduated from that. It's a 10-week course, and can I just tell you, if you've never been through that, you should, when it comes around again, you should be a part of that. It teaches you and it explains to you like what the police department does. If you had any questions about what they do or concerns about the police department whatsoever, it's incredible. We had an opportunity to go to the academy, the Police and Sheriff's Academy out in Camarillo, which was amazing. There was a simulator out there that where they give you real life situations, and even though it's on a screen, I wasn't even up there with the hoster, but I was sweating for the guy that was doing it. It was really neat how it worked out. We went to the county jail, and I tell you what a field trip that was. We went on ride-alongs, which is something that you would just an amazing thing. What our police officers really are skilled in speaking to those that are maybe causing issues, or maybe those that have mental illness, or maybe those that are homeless. Commander Kane was talking about the police task force, and they are 7 days a week. But I went on a ride-along with them one time, and I pastor a church in Ventura, and so I'm the guy that's supposed to have a lot of compassion for people, right? When I was on the police force, when I was on that ride-along, I was telling Sergeant Ensemble, I said, arrest that guy, arrest him. And he was talking to him really, he said, easy, Jim, easy, But they do a great job. Also, one of the things I learned about canines, they're trying to get canines off the police force. I don't know if you heard that or not, but they're lobbying to try to get something passed to be on the ballots this year to no longer allow canines to be on the police force. I just want to tell you that 148 people just last year in Ventura, 148 people surrendered when a dog started barking, when the dog came out. And you know, they're trained that if they put their hands out, the dog stops. Like it will not attack them. Only 4 people got bit, and it wasn't a death bite. It was just to hold them because they decided that they didn't want to play. They took off running and they held them. But what a great tool. We didn't have to pull a taser out. We didn't have to pull a gun out. The dog barked and 148 people stayed alive. Pretty good. So we learned about that. We learned about, I talked a little bit about PTF already. So anyway, I would just recommend, oh, by the way, they really care about our officers too at the police force, mental health. And it's super good. I would just recommend it highly to do that. Now, let me give you an update on Olivas Park. For those of you who don't know, the Olivas Park Drive is going to be connected to the 101 freeway, not tomorrow, but it's in the plans to do that. On October 22nd, it's going to go out to bid, which means that all the work that needs to get done is going to be going out to bid, which means we're moving forward on that project. I also wanted to let you know, the last time I was here, I was talking about development in this area, and you, some of you yelled out, "What about Johnson Drive?" And I said, "Yes, what about Johnson Drive?" And so at about a month and a half ago at our council meeting, we talked about that when we were going over the CIP plan. We asked Phil Nelson, "What about Johnson Drive?" But long story short, the mayor, we all agreed that a letter needed to go out to Caltrans. So now it's on Caltrans' radar. Now there's going to be talk about how we're going to get that developed. So it hadn't been up until then, so it is in the process now. Yeah. Yes. So last time I was here, I had a bunch of questions asked about the illegal pop-ups that are coming up, the taco stands and things that you see in front of Target and different areas of our community. And, you know, obviously they don't pay taxes because they don't have a business license. There's all that stuff. Not to mention they don't have a health department permit to sell food. So I just wanted to let you know that's one of the things we've been working on, and our city's drafting up an ordinance for that. But in the meantime, we're working with the county, and what's happening is there's going to be, very soon, there's going to be some surprise inspections that we're going to go out, and there's going to be an inspection, and if they don't have a business license and a health permit, that we're going to confiscate all of their items, and it's going to be taken away. And so, because, let me tell you what happened. They went out there one time, and when they went out, they told them, "Hey, you don't have a license, you can't be here." They packed up quickly. They called the other two that they're affiliated with in the city. They packed up quickly, and guess what happened the next night? They were back out there again. So this is something that needs to be done, and so we're going to be working on that as well. The Willow project, the one that's right down here, across the street from Johnson Drive. I don't know if you wanted an update on that, but I'll go ahead and give you one. So the Willow project is, Tim, it's, they're moving along well with construction. Their first phase is anticipated to be completed by late August. This will be 75 units and 3 commercial spaces. There's no commercial tenant improvements that have been submitted for those spaces. And by the end of the calendar year, there will be roughly 170 units down there, which is about half the project to be completed. So that's kind of where they're at right now. Across, correct. That's correct, yeah. And just while we're on the subject of development in this area, there hasn't been anything submitted, anything that's on Johnson Drive. Nothing, no plans have been submitted because there's been a lot of talk about mixed use, and there's been a lot of talk about the owners of those places. Am I out of time? Okay, well, let me just wrap it up. Tomorrow I am meeting with Matt Levere's office. We're talking about homelessness. We're going to be talking about getting people back from when they get out of jail, getting them back to the city in which they were arrested in. We are also going to be talking about rehab centers that need to be homelessness. You got the majority of the people that are homeless right now that are dealing with mental illness or drug addiction. And so we, as you probably know, we have more methadone clinics than we do rehab centers, and we have to look at fixing the problem before they can get housed. And so we'll be talking about that. We're going to be talking about a county-wide partnership. So it's just not Ventura doing it all, but everybody working together. And also, there's a non-emergency number. Can I give that to you for the Ventura Police Department? It's 805-650-8010. And I just say, if you see anything that you're dealing with, any kind of vagrancy whatsoever, call. If it's not an emergency, call that number. We need to make sure that that gets logged, and there is a history of what's going on. I have more, but
I appreciate it so much.
I'll see you later.
Well, real quick, Jim, though, you were mentioning the repaving from Johnson east to Bristol.
Yes.
So what about from
Yeah,
Johnson this way?
Thank you. So that hasn't been on the plans for this year because of the sidewalks and things like that they're doing. As you notice, they're repaving parts of it. Once all of that is done, then they're going to decide what they're going to do at that point. But it's not ignored. It's just, yeah.
That was a question about Bristol from Johnson
West.
West
Correct.
to Grand. That strip
My
also
time's
needs
up.
to be repaved. You said a time or two. And another quick question here, Councilmember.
Did you speak to the businesses off of Sherwin Avenue?
Did I speak to them?
Did you speak to the businesses off of Sherwin Avenue, the businesses south of the railroad track
Regarding?
regarding redevelopment, zoning?
Are you talking
Oh.
about the map in your lap?
Yeah.
That will be, our secretary will talk about that.
Coming up.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay, yeah. That was a question about for a later agenda item. Okay? All right, great. So we're so glad you're here because you may already be up to date on this project, but I'm going to invite Karen Flock and Kyler Carlson up, please. They're here from the Ventura Housing Authority, and there is a big project on the books coming up. Oh, we have another friend with us as well.
Yes.
Hi. Aaron?
Aaron Smith.
Aaron Smith, thank you for being here.
Great. And for slides, how do we advance? Just make a note? Okay, wonderful. Great. Well, like Cassie said, my name's Kyler Carlson. I'm a project manager at the Housing Authority. I'm joined by Karen Flock, our Deputy Director of Real Estate Development, and Aaron Smith, an assistant project manager helping us with this project. So the project we're talking about today, slides, is, you can go to the next slide, is what's currently operated as a La Quinta Inn. The Housing Authority has an option to purchase the La Quinta and turn it into approximately 134 studios for individuals experiencing homelessness or at risk of experiencing homelessness. So this project, we have an option to purchase the agreement and most of the financing in place, but the key financing piece is going to be the state's HomeKey program. That's a grant program that funds projects like these, and we just submitted our application to HomeKey today. So the project is not a certain thing until we get that financing, but it's a potential project, so we wanted to get the word out in the community and hear any concerns ahead of time. So you can go to the next slide. Yeah, so the project is, most of us know where the La Quinta Inn is right now. You can go to the next slide. It's relatively close to quite a few amenities. The 101 does intersect, but there is pedestrian access up to the grocery stores, things like healthcare, things like pharmacies, important amenities that these clients will need to access. So that's a brief overview about the project. In case some of you don't know about the Housing Authority, I'll talk a little bit about that. We were formed in 1949. We have the express mission of providing housing and wraparound supportive services to Ventura's low-income residents. We operate about 1,900 units of housing already in the city, across the city. You can see the orange dots on that map. Our units are relatively evenly spread, although we do have what could be an overconcentration of housing projects in the west side and downtown. We don't have a lot in Montalvo at the moment. You can go to the next slide. In addition to owning, operating, and developing affordable housing, we have a voucher program. We administer the federal Section 8 voucher program for the city of Ventura. We have approximately 1,400 vouchers that are given to tenants, and that helps low-income tenants, and that helps subsidize their market rate rent to an affordable level. Affordable meaning they pay 30% of their income a month towards rent. So the Section 8 program takes care of that difference between the market rate rent and what they actually make. What that turns into practically is about $1.2 million a month given to local landlords by our Section 8 program. And important for this project are some of our key experiences with this particular subpopulation. So Karen will talk about.
Okay, so we're kind of tag teaming this report here. So next slide. That is one of our permanent supportive housing developments is called Castillo del Sol. It is 40 special needs apartments located in Midtown on Main Street, kind of near 5 Points. Houses a variety of special needs populations. And another project that we're very proud of is called El Portal on the west side. That's it. So this was kind of our like miracle child. This was a building on the west side that had 316 code violations. It was a crime scene. It was really every bad thing you could think of. We're able to acquire it and completely rehabilitate it, turning it into really good living spaces for folks, and it's permanent supportive housing. It's 28 apartments, and it's really now an asset on the west side. And so now back to Kyler.
Next slide. Yeah, and so now we'll talk a little bit about our vision for the space. The funding that we've gone out and attempted to secure for this will help us do quite a bit of rehab, although the property is in relatively good condition. So it's just rehab to make, mostly to make quality of life improvements for the residents. And Aaron's gonna talk a bit about the rehab.
Yeah, so we intend to, sorry, we're intending to do some renovations in 2 phases. The first phase is going to consist of adding 31 kitchenettes to all of the studio apartments, making some ADA upgrades, which would bring us up from 6 units to 21 units, making it a 15% of all units being ADA compliant. And then if we're looking at the slides, you can see that our courtyard centerpiece is going to be currently a pool, and we plan to fill that pool, unfortunately, and make that a community-wide courtyard where everybody can enjoy. We also intend to create a self-serve laundry facility on the premise, and also create some office spaces as well on the property. Go ahead, Kyler.
Yeah, and so the office spaces, it's a 142-room hotel, and we're saying it can be converted into about 134 units. And the reason we're saying that is because we want to take a lot of the units offline to turn them into supportive service office spaces, so that both the employees of the housing authority that are working on the property, as well as our community partners like Ventura County Behavioral Health, HSA, and those supportive service providers have space on site to provide services. So overall, taking those 8 units or so offline will create enough community space and office space to adequately provide services. So we can go to the next slide, or quite a few. That's the hotel rooms right now. Next slide. That's the lobby right now. You can see that everything is in relatively good condition. Next slide. Next slide. That's the pool. Next slide, one more. So now we can talk more specifically about the residents, the kind of target populations for this project, which mostly are about 34, we think. We have project-based voucher. We have 31 project-based vouchers, and about 34 we're targeting for people experiencing chronic homelessness. We have 37 for homelessness, and then the 63 remaining would be what's considered at risk of homelessness. Those are all federal definitions, and there's a long laundry list of criteria that makes you technically meet chronic homelessness versus at risk of homelessness. I think the thing to take home is, homelessness is you can kind of imagine that. At risk of homelessness is essentially folks who make 30% of the median income and below. Individuals that what we're seeing a lot of now is especially seniors who are on a fixed income, whose rents keep going up and their fixed income isn't able to match that. So we see those people finding a lot of housing instability and enter that at-risk of homelessness category. So this will be a project overall that even within kind of that low-income category can house a lot of different types of individuals and their experiences. So next slide. As far as referrals, because there's affordable housing financing is very complicated and there's a lot of different funding programs we're using. I mentioned 31 project-based vouchers. So 31 of the chronic homelessness will be referred through the county's coordinated entry system to our project-based voucher department. We have 40 of the units that Ventura County Behavioral Health has agreed to partner with. They're going to be providing case management and supportive services for those 40 individuals experiencing homelessness. And so those 40 will be referred through what's called the coordinated entry system. That's a county-wide system that tries to coordinate care by prioritizing making sure housing and needs get met to the most vulnerable is what that coordinated entry system is designed to do. And then the 63 at-risk of homelessness units, we're not necessarily going to be using the coordinated entry system with that, but we're going to be creating an alternate prioritization system in collaboration with the county continuum of care. So that's kind of where the process for referrals for each of those subpopulations. On time. Next, we can talk about staffing a bit. Karen, do you want to talk about staffing?
So it's really important to have this facility be well-staffed. So we'll have 4 property managers. 2 of them will be resident managers who live on site. And then case management. That's sort of the core of having permanent supportive housing. So we will have 4 housing authority staff members who will be case managers. And then, as Kyler mentioned, we're working with behavioral health. They will be providing 2 case managers who will be based on site. That's why we need all those offices. So when you talk about permanent supportive housing and case management, it's important to have the right ratios of these case managers to folks. So they range from 1 for every 20, 1 for every 25 for homelessness with disabilities, to our folks who are at risk of homelessness, 1 to 40. And between them all, we'll be caring for them with the 6 case managers. And this is, next slide, is kind of, that was our staffing plan. This is kind of our staffing organization. And I know, sorry, we're trying to get through this whole presentation and it's not quite big enough. You're going to talk about the funding?
Yeah, so when all would you see this project come to fruition? Right now, HCD is the State Department of Housing and Community Development. They're the ones who administer that home key program that I talked about at the beginning. We've submitted our application today, actually. We finally got the green light to submit our application. And HCD says that they would get an award letter if the project is ultimately funded in 60 to 90 days. So that would put us at July of 2023 of us actually having secured the funding in order to acquire the property. Because there is some rehab required, we would expect to close the financing in September of 2023, and we would expect a few months of that initial rehab, and after that initial period, then we can start leasing up. We're going to focus on getting the units into a habitable condition, and then we'll focus on the community spaces. So we'll be able to start leasing up towards the beginning of next year if this project is funded. And then we would be leasing up in kind of this cohort system where we're not, so it's not 134 new faces coming to the neighborhood all at once. It would be in groups of 20 to 30 or so in periods over every 2 to 3 months. So cohort, it allows us to kind of establish a community and slowly introduce new people and make adjustments to staffing and case and care coordination as needed as we go on. And so with that, or go 2 slides. I don't know why I had it out of order. Go 1 slide over. The other thing we're looking for is a new name. If we keep calling it the La Quinta, we'll get a nice little cease and desist letters here soon. So if you have any suggestions for a new name, we definitely want community input on that. And then you can go back one slide and we'll open it up to questions and answers. Great.
Is the city then gonna maintain it after?
Yeah, so the Housing Authority of the City of San Buenaventura, despite its name, is not the City of Ventura. We're two separate entities. Our Board of Commissioners is appointed by the City Council, but that's kind of where, and we partner with the city very frequently, but that's where the relationship kind of ends. And so the Housing Authority of the City of San Buenaventura will develop, own, manage, and provide, be the lead supportive service provider for this project.
Including will be the property manager, so that means taking care of the residents and maintaining that
Yes,
physical plan.
yeah, but it will all be us, and final responsibility will be on the Housing Authority.
Are these all furnished?
So. Oh, yes. The question is, are they furnished apartments? And Karen, go for it.
Well, so right now they have some furnishings, but we will be changing the furnishings a bit. We'll be ultimately providing kitchenettes in each of the units and, you know, like a chair and table and stuff like that. So they will be furnished.
And the other thing is, if people have a pet, are they gonna be able to take it with them?
Yes, we have some pet rules but yes, is the short answer.
So am I correct to say that the residents there would have to pay 30% of their income in order to secure a room?
Yeah, so it's a little bit more complicated than that. We have rental assistance for about 70 of the units. So people will pay 30% of their income as rent. On the other units, we do not have rent subsidy, and we have fixed low rents that people should be able to afford without rent subsidy.
Another question, so 131 units, do you feel that the staffing is adequate enough, 2 managers on board for that many?
Yeah, there's actually 4 property managers. 2 of them will be resident managers, and then a total of 6 case managers. Actually, this is pretty heavy staffing. I mean, yeah.
The other question is, how do I sign up and when can I move in?
Well, as Kyler mentioned, basically it'll be coming through referrals. So if you can sign up with the humans, I mean, I don't know how serious you are, but if you're at risk of homelessness, the county's Health and Human Services Agency, their homelessness program, you can sign up with them and they will be one of our referring groups.
Sorry, I came in late. The Arts Commission meets at the same time, which is not convenient. Apologies, I'm doing double duty. So this is the hotel on the other side of the freeway, and last I heard they were also developing a motel or a hotel on this side. Am I crazy, or is this the only low-income homeless housing project in Montalvo?
This is the only hotel that's on Valentine and Victoria, south of the freeway.
You have plenty of time, but I might be able to answer your question. There was a 100% low-income housing project we were talking about near Ralph's. There was going to be a 6-story there. As far as we know, it's on hold indefinitely. So as far as we know, this is the only low-income project that is currently being developed.
So the hotel right here is not the same.
No.
Victoria Motel does not have any plans that we're aware of.
Oh, okay, all right, thank you. I felt like I had a second question.
Is there any vetting of the residents before they move in?
Repeat that, please.
Okay, the question is there any vetting of the residents before they move in? So this is actually what's called a housing first model. So yes, residents are screened and we'll be certifying them for income. And folks who are referred through the Section 8 process do have a couple of extra qualifications. But basically the idea is get homeless people into housing, provide them access to services, support them, help them turn their lives around. And if they don't follow the rules, then they'll have to leave.
Okay, so there'll be quite a few rules to follow.
your typical, typical like if you lived in a regular apartment, you can't hurt your neighbors, you can't hurt the manager, well, some noise, but, no, not too much noise, and your typical apartment rules.
I have one more. What are the numbers for the homeless today in Ventura? Any idea?
The question is, what are the numbers of homeless in Ventura? I think Kyler may have the more up to
At
date.
least the 2023 point in time count, which is something that the county puts on. They're required by HUD to do it. It's kind of a day of the month in January where they do a lot of canvassing and a survey to get an idea on how the demographics change from year to year of individuals on the street. And in the 2023 point in time count, the number of individuals experiencing homelessness in the city of Ventura was in the low 600s. I want to say like 618. Yeah, the city of Ventura per capita has the most individuals experiencing homelessness. Oxnard has more, but they have twice the population.
Does that include people living like in their motorhomes or their cars?
Yes, the point in time count did have an option for like the surveyors to identify people living in motels and RVs that didn't seem to be fit for human habitation. So, yes.
So the cannabis program that is rolling out, it's in the appeals process, so I'm not sure what's gonna happen. But there were 3 slated for Montalvo, one directly across from the location you're talking about. Are you at all concerned about that? Does that affect your application?
It doesn't really affect our application. When we've talked about it internally, the requirements on those kinds of businesses they're required to bring a lot of security with them, so we're not super concerned. But the question was, how does this relate to the rolling out of the cannabis program in the city of Ventura?
Well,
Does
you're
that-
able to get cannabis without a license, correct?
I have no idea.
That's not our area of expertise.
Just an ID, but anyone from this La Cuenta can go over and, so they can. If they're over 21. They could be totally wasted on cannabis.
Well, and I think, there's quite a bit of security that goes along with these facilities, the cannabis facilities. Again, I'm not an expert on that, but it's my understanding.
They can't plead, that they don't have money and go and buy cannabis, and live in what you're offering.
I guess one question would be, will there be any residents that are living for free?
What was the question?
Nobody's going to be living for free. Actually, under the Section 8 program, so one thing that the county programs do, and we will do, is we'll help people to get an income source if they don't have one. The Section 8 program requires that you have a minimum, that you pay a minimum of $50, even if you have most of your rent subsidized. And on our unsubsidized units, people will be paying rents of $400 to $600 in that range. So they'll have to have the income to be able to pay that. And those rents are based on 30% of SSI and 30% of 20% of area median income. Sorry to get sort of wonky here.
But she had a very good question. I mean, the cannabis place is meant to be right across the street at the old Solstice building.
I believe that's one of the proposals. I don't think they got,
They get selected, but
I don't think they got selected. We're going to pretty soon be asking Jim to answer these questions.
to have a place rebuild and get your life together and then have cannabis next door.
Well, there's a liquor store not too far either, so. So, people are gonna do what they're gonna do.
Yeah, and so, I mean, we do have, we will be having different programs, and maybe Amy can talk about this a little bit, I'm not sure, to, help people who have drug or alcohol issues. And our,
Can you tell us about how many people are on a wait list now for units similar to this?
Oh, well, just on our Section 8 list, we have a 10-year waiting list. So there's plenty of people who need housing. I mean, the basic problem is we don't have enough housing in the state, in our city. We don't have enough affordable housing. And this is, people who have the least resources and have maybe the most problems are the folks who are trying to help with a program like this.
So just real quick, the project on the other side of Johnson, that's not housing.
The Willows project, yeah.
That's not housing.
The Willows project that's being built across from Carl's Jr. is a traditional apartment building, not at all related to the Housing Authority. So they're only working on our project at the hotel at Victoria and the 101. Got it? Oh.
Cassie, is there apartments, there flats
The,
down in Johnson?
600, John, do you remember how many of the Willows that you had mentioned? Around 380 units are being built at the intersection. For rent, not at all, and they're not low-income units.
There's 19% are inclusionary housing.
19% are inclusionary housing, but it's a traditional apartment building.
Sorry, not 19%.
19 units.
19 units, only 19 units.
But is it moderate, is it?
Well, and I will just say, the city recently passed an amended inclusionary housing ordinance, which will require more inclusionary housing in rental projects like this, but that one was approved before it went into effect. So, thank you, City Council.
I saw some questions. Oh, can we do 2 questions?
Yes.
John, I saw your hand at one point, but.
She answered.
Oh.
I was gonna say that with the cannabis, should it ever come there, they're gonna have on-site security 24/7 as well as cameras and lighting presumably. Also, their application you said went in today,
Yes.
so the cannabis isn't even applied, so there's appeals.
Oh, it's just the temptation.
But it may change the landscape down the road because they're in first, possibly.
Oh, right.
We don't know.
But I think
And then one final question.
Thank you so much, and we'll be sticking around. I guess we have time for one more question.
Question, I just want to compliment you guys for using an existing building versus bulldozing it to the ground, starting all over again, really looking at a building that can be used, and I'm really happy to see housing being made available for those less fortunate.
Thank you.
I really want to get that on the recording. A resident thanked the Housing Authority for using a building. Matt, do I get a gold star? For using a building that's already in existence rather than bulldozing and building new, and happy to see housing for people in need. Thank you. Okay, so I'm now going to invite up Amy Dugan of BRIGHT, the Building Resilience and Inclusion Through Engagement. Thank you for being here.
Great. You can go to the next one, please. So thank you so much. I am here tonight to talk about overdose prevention, opioids, and fentanyl, a growing and very frightening issue. You can go to the next one, please. So what are opioids? Opioids are a strong painkiller. They're drugs that work in the brain to provide relief from severe or chronic pain. They can be misused and abused to induce a feeling of euphoria. They range from prescription painkillers like hydrocodone or oxycodone to illegal fentanyl, fake pills, and heroin, even when they're used as prescribed. Opioid medications may lead to substance use disorder, and misuse may lead to dependency and addiction. Only 5 days of use can lead to dependence. And with dependence and addiction, the danger of overdose increases. Overdose is most common when someone's tolerance is low, when an individual is sick during sickness, when using alone, and when drugs are mixed, especially when they're combined with other sedating substances like benzodiazepine, so prescriptions like Xanax, Ativan, Valium, and alcohol. So pharmaceutical fentanyl is a synthetic opioid. It's medically used and prescribed to treat severe or long-term pain in patients who need continuous relief. But very importantly, it's medically supervised. Prescription fentanyl is not usually linked to synthetic opioid harms and overdoses. It's highly, highly potent. It's 100 times stronger than morphine and 50 times stronger than heroin. And as you can, oops. Yeah, perfect. Thank you. And as you can see, it's manufactured in a regulated, controlled, clean environment. Now contrast this with illicitly manufactured and sold fentanyl. Illegal fentanyl is very cheap to produce. It is highly concentrated. A little bit of it goes a very long way. So it's mixed with other drugs to really stretch that drug supply. It means that it can be packaged much smaller, and that's much easier for illegal importation and manufacturing. It is easily mixed with other drugs that are snorted, swallowed, smoked, or injected without the fentanyl ever being detected. And it's not precisely measured when it's mixed, so every dose is a gamble. There's no idea how much fentanyl might be in a batch or how much you're getting. It can be in pill form or powder form. In powder form, it's typically mixed with heroin, methamphetamine, or cocaine. It can be in any illicit drug. Has anyone here heard of xylazine, which is starting to be discussed? It's more prevalent on the East Coast, where many of these drug trends start, and it's moving to the West Coast. We are seeing it in Los Angeles, so it will be in Ventura County in no time. It's an animal tranquilizer, and it is being mixed with fentanyl and causing tremendous harm. So something to be on the lookout for. Now, cannabis, I know we were just talking a lot about cannabis. Cannabis laced with fentanyl is more rare compared to pressed pills or fake pills and drugs in powder form. So anything with fentanyl takes effect a lot faster, and it wears off sooner, which makes it very addictive. It's one of the most common drugs associated with overdose deaths in the United States. We need to assume it is in every illicit drug that is out there. And as you can see, whoops, sorry, back one more time. Thank you. And as you can see by this image, it's manufactured in clandestine environments, unregulated. It's mixed oftentimes in like smoothie mixers, and that's how batches are produced. Next slide, please. So we definitely have a nationwide crisis, and we have a local crisis. Our Drug Enforcement Administration did lab testing, and they revealed that 6 out of every 10 pills with fentanyl contain a potentially lethal dose. That's up from 4 out of every 10 pills in only a matter of months, so it's significantly increasing. The Centers for Disease Control estimate that by 2029, over 1.2 million people will die from fentanyl and other opioids if no action is taken. And record quantities of fentanyl were seized by the DEA in 2021, enough fentanyl to kill every single American. At the end of 2022, the DEA seized more than 50 million, I had to double check, 50 million fake pills. That's more than double what they seized in 2021, and that's in all states. No state is immune. Next slide, thank you. So this is SoFi Stadium. Does anyone know how many people SoFi Stadium holds approximately? Okay. 70,000 or a little bit more, and fentanyl killed this, you can hit one more. Yeah, fentanyl killed this many people in 2022. Okay, next slide. Now this is some body cam footage. It is intense. They are not fatal overdoses that you're going to see. If anyone would like to step out, if it's a little bit too difficult to watch, please feel free to do so. This is body cam footage from our Ventura County Sheriff's Office. Our audio is not working, so I'll just sort of narrate what's happening. So a call has come in, the officer is responding. Again, this is in Ventura County. The individual standing there is on with 911. The sergeant comes in. He asks, Do you know what these individuals have taken? The very distraught caller does not know. He talks about how they just kind of started acting strange. He knew they were parting with something. The sergeant tries to takes pulses for the individuals, rolls them over onto their side. They all are clearly breathing, but not responsive at all. He yells to his counterpart to get naloxone or Narcan, assuming that an opioid is most likely involved with these overdoses. What you can't hear is the woman on the ground right there is making kind of gurgling sounds. Almost sounds like she's snoring. No one's responsive, of course. He's taking her pulse as well. And this individual, this woman on the couch, he asks for the gentleman who called to help move her. And here you can see the naloxone or Narcan kit, which is a nasal spray, and the sergeant administers that to this individual as well as the others, which prevented this from being a fatal overdose. 3, which is fairly unusual for a call to come in for 3 individuals, but the officer who, the sergeant whose body cam footage this is, he said they get calls every day, every single day for overdoses. But no side effects. And I have a slide on that, but that's an excellent question. But there is no harm if it is given accidentally or if the person is not overdosing. But I will get into that. Thank you for that. Okay, next slide, please. So what does a potentially lethal dose of fentanyl look like? I like to hold up an actual pencil and penny. It's staggering. Only 2 milligrams can cause a fatal overdose of fentanyl. So what are some local consequences? What are we seeing here? We have a county opioid abuse suppression task force. And per that task force, again, Ventura County is a part of a prescription painkiller abuse and nationwide crisis. In 2021, opioids were prescribed in Ventura County 421,649 times, with the average number of opioid pills dispensed per resident being 31 pills. 1 in 5 Ventura County teens have abused prescription drugs. 50% of them get them from friends and family. From 2016 to 2022, there were 853 accidental opioid-related deaths in Ventura County. For comparison, in 2016, there were 55 overdose deaths, and in 2022, 200. So it's really increasing. In the past year alone, local fentanyl overdoses have risen by 88%. And our district attorney, I listened to a community meeting recently, and he stated that in 2019, we saw 18 cases involving fentanyl, and in 2022, 635 cases. That's a 3,000% increase. Next slide, please. So fake pills or counterfeit pills. These are part, of course, of the fentanyl surge we're seeing, and it's fentanyl disguised as other drugs in prescription-looking fake pills. Fentanyl typically in these fake pills comes as round blue pills, but they can also be brightly colored other pills if you've maybe heard of rainbow fentanyl. Most common counterfeit pills are prescription opioids like oxycodone, OxyContin, or Percocet, hydrocodone like Vicodin, and alprazolam like Xanax, or stimulants like amphetamines or Adderall. Users might believe that they are handling actual prescription pills, and this increases the potential for overdose. Some, especially youth, may believe that all medicine is safe and be unaware that a prescription-looking pill is laced or contaminated with fentanyl. And again, most fake pills have fentanyl. We need to assume that. You cannot see, smell, or taste fentanyl. And again, that uneven distribution in fentanyl and counterfeit pills means that drugs from the same source can vary greatly in fentanyl quantity. Even if users know this might not actually be a prescription pill, there's still no way to tell how much fentanyl might be in that pill without actually testing it. And one pill is all it takes to overdose. You saw the amount it takes. Just one pill. All the time we're hearing about overdose deaths that aren't a party death. It's not an addiction casualty. It's one pill that someone got off the internet to help with anxiety or depression or something like that. They're often sold via social media, online and e-commerce platforms, on apps that are very popular with teens who believe they're buying something that's safe for mental health. Anyone with a smartphone has access to these fake pills. And if you, thank you. If you look at that image of a fake and real oxycodone and Xanax, I know the first time I looked at that, I most definitely thought the fake one was the real one because it's pressed so much better. It looks like an actual pill, where the other looks like it would be fake, when in fact it's not. Next slide, please. So these are some emojis that are used both by dealers and by those soliciting pills. Fake pills, Percocet and oxycodone, again, dealer signals and emojis for other drugs. These can all be found on the DEA's website, and it's good to just become familiar with them in case they show up in a text message or on other social media platforms. Next slide, please. It's also a good idea to become familiar with street names. The list on the left, those are I gleaned from our Ventura County Sheriff's Office. Those are used locally. The others are more common nationally. But again, fentanyl goes by butter, fent, fenty, Play-Doh, and opioids might be called junk or oxy, blues, 30s, 40s. Again, these are terms that are changing all the time, but can show up on social media. Next slide, please. So what can be done? How are we responding to this crisis? In terms of prescription opioids, it's really, really important to lock up and secure medications. You can purchase a medicine lockbox. It's not uncommon for people to go through other people's medicine cabinets when they're at someone else's house, especially youth. And there are even things called skittle parties, where the price of admission is a youth bringing some drugs, something he or she or they found in a medicine cabinet. And you have to toss them into a bowl, and they're part of the party scene. Use prescriptions only as prescribed. Please don't ignore labels, experiment, or mix medications or medications with alcohol or other drugs. It's important not to share pills, never take medicine that was not prescribed to you by your own doctor, and only trust medications from a verified U.S. pharmacy. Vacations have become a very vulnerable time with foreign pharmacies. Also, properly dispose of expired and unused medications. Ventura County has a prescription drug disposal program, and there are also drug take-back days that make it very safe to dispose of unused drugs or expired drugs. You're all here tonight, which is a step in the right direction of knowing the dangers and accessibility of drugs, deadly drugs online. It's so important to talk to friends and family about this and really help educate and engage youth. A 2022 survey showed that only 1/3 to 1/2 of youth know that fake pills are manufactured with fentanyl. I tested it out on my own teenagers, and even the one who has dabbled had no clue about fentanyl. Help close this knowledge gap and also help dispel myths. Many people think that by touching fentanyl, you can overdose. And there have been some sort of misleading or confusing articles I've even read about in the Star that say medical personnel or law enforcement overdosed by helping someone who was overdosing. That's actually a misconception. You cannot overdose from fentanyl simply by touching it in powder form. Now, if you sniff that or taste that, that's a different story. It's entering a mucous membrane or getting into your bloodstream. You might think about fentanyl patches, prescription fentanyl patches, which are in a different formulation, but that's not what we see cut into other illicit drugs. And now on to naloxone. So very important to learn about naloxone. Narcan is the brand name. It's a safe and legal antidote to reverse an opioid overdose. What's really important is that it only works for an opioid overdose. It will not work for a stimulant overdose or an alcohol overdose. There has to be some sort of opioid or synthetic opioid in or happening to the person overdosing. There are no psychoactive effects. It is harmless if it's administered accidentally. So err on the side of assuming someone is overdosing on an opioid. And again, it's most common in a nasal spray. It's an opioid receptor antagonist. It acts like a bully. It basically knocks that fentanyl off of the opioid receptors. It's like using an EpiPen for an allergy attack. And when you have, whoops, I really got to speed it up. I'm almost there. Opioid overdoses result in your respiration decreasing to the point of not breathing. You have time, though, that happens pretty slowly. You have time to administer Narcan and, of course, immediately call 911. I'm going to switch to the next slide just so I can get through everything. There are some more statistics on some county websites about the usage of naloxone and its effectiveness. It soon will be over the counter, hopefully by summer. Right now you can get it without questions asked at any pharmacy, or most pharmacies are carrying it without a prescription. And very important, please help save lives by learning the signs of misuse and overdose. Misuse might be a change in physical appearance or behavioral changes, unexplained pills or paraphernalia. And really important with overdose, pupils are small, limp body. The person's unable to talk, much of what we saw in the body cam footage. And I'll skip to the last one really quickly. Just please be a part of spreading this awareness. Make it a conversation with those you know. Explain the realities, impress upon people that it doesn't matter the source. Consider fentanyl in every illicit drug right now. Be clear about the risks and encourage people to administer Narcan or naloxone if they have it. Err on the side of caution. And then the last couple of slides are the county's resources, which I have materials in the back. They're all printed for you there, as well as the sergeant who shot the body cam footage. Okay, sorry to go over. Thank you.
Really appreciate it. Thank you, Ms. Dugan, for being here. I'm going to invite up Steph Carba for a 15-minute review. Steph is part of the GPAC. Come on up. Another volunteer position with many, many, many hours involved in the process, because Carba understands how important this is going to be for the future of Ventura for the next how many years? Kyler's also on the GPAC, huh?
20 years.
For the next 20 years. 25 years. Please.
Thank you. Awesome. Thank you, Cassie. Hi, everyone. I hate to follow such a scary and somber subject, but Amy, thank you so much. That was a really informative presentation. Thank you. I personally am really hopeful that one day Narcan will be as widespread as like an EpiPen, and that, like, even over the counter. I don't know if we'll eventually have that one day. That's amazing. So I have kind of a hodgepodge presentation. I don't know if I'm gonna take up the whole 15 minutes, but I actually wanted to start with something that I'm really excited about that Councilmember Duran partly brought up, but it is specific to our area in Montalvo. I'll pass this out. People on the feed, email me. My email will be at the end, and I can send this out to you. getting our streets paved. It was presented by Phil Nelson, the pavement management plan for the next 5 years, and it was called out. It was kind of embarrassing. It was literally called out in City Council that Montalvo streets are as bad as they are. So at the City Council level, they're like, hey, what's going on in District 6? And so Phil Nelson, Public Works, they're on it. There's a schedule to it. There's next 5 years, our whole area is going to get some attention, which I was very excited about and felt like I wanted to share with everyone here. The General Plan Advisory Committee. Okay, so first off, my name is Steph Karba. If you haven't met me yet, friends, neighbors, colleagues, all call me Karba, so feel free to do so. Kyler and I have been on the GPAC since February of 2021. It has been a civic commitment. And it is a very exciting process. If you care about any of these areas in blue, which you should because we're in one right now, then this process will matter to you. So next, please. So the general plan is a policy document that's very important. It will be approved by City Council at the very end, and it basically establishes the vision for Ventura. What does Ventura want in its land use designation and designations across the city over the next 20 years? What's Ventura going to look like in, 2040 something, which is crazy to think about, but it's exciting, it's all about dreaming, it's all about thinking about what the city could be. Are there areas that we want to keep the same? Are there things that really aren't working? A mix of both. But we talk about everything. We've had meetings, specifically required elements that will be in the general plan. It's going to be a chunky document, hundreds of pages long. There's already hundreds of pages if you feel like you need something to put you to sleep at night on the website. But it covers housing, it covers land use, it covers parks, it covers transportation. So everything associated with living, working, breathing, being in a city, this document is general. It is covering all of it. And so next, please. One of the things that I really like about it is the core values and vision that we've established as a group. We did that at the very beginning. It was like, let's not whip the maps out yet. Let's see what our values are as a city. What is Ventura proud of? And that's kind of what's listed here. So when thinking of the zoning areas and the land use designations, we really approach that from a perspective of community, that this is a strong and close-knit community. I know my neighbors know me. It has a unique characteristic. I personally don't know many other cities that are like Ventura. We have an amazing quality of life, but one of the main core values is making sure, similar to the Housing for All people, is that Ventura is a place that all people of all ages, income levels, abilities, races, socioeconomic kind of divisions, everyone, Ventura, that they can call it home and comfortably live here. Diversity and equity is a core value. So safety and health, innovation. We have a couple people on we have people from the Chamber of Commerce on the GPAC. We have folks who are developers. We have folks from the housing. So, I mean, it's a really mix mash of people, but we associate all of these core values into our conversations. We don't always agree on things, but generally, it's a very great conversation. So since, next slide, please. So this is where we are now, year 3, going on, I don't know how many, and we're only halfway. So right now, we have basically had extensive conversations about each of those 17 discussion areas that were in the map in the beginning. And that is currently going to inform the next stage, which is really the policy development. What is the policy that's going to then go into the drafted general plan that the City Council will vote on? So next. So since the last time we met in February here, there have been 5 GPAC meetings, so quite a lot has gone down. Next, please. So, in the first meeting on February 21st, we talked about Victoria and Pierpont. I have the summary notes for all of those meetings, and so if y'all want me to go into the details about what we talked about for each of those areas, I can. Otherwise, I can just kind of tell you which sections of the city we talked about during that meeting. I don't know, it's up to you. How many? Okay, perfect. So Victoria, well, I guess it's in District 6, so I'll talk about that. So the overall, to Jim's earlier point about the city council letter that went to Caltrans, or no, sorry, that's Johnson. But similarly, transportation is a huge need for improvement for District 6 holistically. And so that was an overall vision and thought for the Victoria corridor, and the fact that the westbound 126 does not connect to the 101 south, so everyone comes through Victoria, and then it becomes this like mini highway. So it's like kind of, that is definitely, so visioning what Victoria could look like is very interwoven with the transportation elements of Victoria. So we brought that up, that it serves a ton of residents on the east side in terms of it being a major commercial and retail area. And then lastly, it was deemed an appropriate area for concentrating heights and density. That was the summary from the conversation. So next on, we had two meetings and these meetings are like 3 hours long. So we had two meetings, March 6th and 7th. On March 6th, we talked about the east side, we talked about the college area, we talked about briefly Johnson, and then on the 7th, we talked exclusively about the west side. And one of the important dynamics of the, I'll bring this up shortly later, but one of the unique dynamics of the general plan is the fact that Ventura has housing requirements and needs, and there will be a requirement from the state level for a certain amount of development over the next, same as the general plan, over the next 20 years. So fundamentally in how we change the various land use designations across the city, ultimately there has to be what's called no net loss. So if we downzone on the west side, we have to upzone somewhere else. If we downzone on the east side over here, we have to upzone somewhere else. So eventually, the consultants from the city or who are working with the city are gonna do that literal analysis to figure out how the various densities are going to match throughout the city based on all of this feedback, and that will come June 6th, TBD. And so, yeah, so March 6th, talked about a bunch of stuff. March 7th was West Side. West Side definitely gets a ton of attention or a ton of public engagement, just in terms of like the folks who are on the West Side and in downtown. There's definitely hesitancy to expand developments on the West Side, and so it at times becomes a bit of a east side, west side. Where is the development in the future going to go? Is it going to sprawl across to the east? Are we going to make sure that it stays dense downtown? Those are all kind of parts of the conversation. And then on March 21st was our fourth meeting since the last time, and there we talked about downtown and midtown, and then some stretches of the beach. And then the last meeting that we had was April 18th, and there we talked about a whole lot. We talked about 5 points, the industrial area, Arundel, Johnson, the Johnson corridor, and SOAR, the very, very contentious SOAR. Everyone is essentially in agreement that we're not going to develop on SOAR. So, yeah. So it's one of those things that there's city SOAR and there's county SOAR, and in the context of the city's general plan, we only talk about city SOAR and not county SOAR. But it is it is always a very confusing and difficult conversation. Because of that, even the consultants were like, this is county, this is city, this is just farmland that's not SOAR. Like, it's very, very complex. And in the context of the general plan, we're literally talking about every parcel in this across the city. Well, in the discussion areas, but it's still a lot of land. So, next please. So yeah, essentially we've discussed everything. Everything's done. In terms of public engagement, I wanted to share this. So I shared this in February just to give a sense of, there's been a ton of effort by the city and residents and folks on the GPAC to spread the word about the general plan process. The main survey that was used to inform the land use designation suggestions got about 1,000 people, 38 of whom were from this area specifically. So in the last meeting in February, I shared this number and was like, put a fire under folks to get more engaged. And then next, please. The community council did an amazing job in terms of getting 3 times as many people engaged locally, but still in the context of the 14,000 some people who live in District 6, it's not the greatest voter turnout. Like, it's not the greatest voter turnout, but like, it is something that literally up until, next slide please, or maybe actually was an older one, community engagement is a thread through every single, it's gonna be nonstop until city council approves it, and God knows when, this year, hopefully. But so if you have found yourself like, Carbo, what's a general plan? I've never heard about this before. I wanna get involved. There's still time. There's very much still time, and like, please, next slide. Or sorry, no, I'm gonna stay on this for a second. So the next stage really is, we've done a survey of the GPAC, we've done a survey of the public, and now we're kind of going into a cycle where we're surveying the GPAC again, and then that is going to, an analysis of us is gonna be done. That is going to then create the preferred land use map, which is going to be the new visioned land use designation map for those discussion areas. Then there's going to be, like I said, that no net loss analysis that's going to be incorporated into that. There's going to be a meeting on June 6th. I also am excited about this handout because it is a civic engagement calendar for anyone who wants to know when things happen. There's city council on here. I didn't make it, so it's not perfect. But when I say that, the next General Plan Advisory Committee on there is slated for May 16th. That has been canceled in lieu of having a special meeting on June 6th. So please, if you're listening and reading, ignore May 16th. Don't go to City Hall on that day unless you're like really jazzed about seeing City Hall. And then please come on June 6th for our next big conversation. And like I should say, in the meantime, there will be the survey of the GPAC members of Kyler and myself. And so I would be happy to form I don't know, to do that as a group. I don't know if we're allowed to do it with people.
I don't know about doing a survey with people, but
Yeah.
forwarding people's concerns
Yes.
to the consultant team is definitely.
Yeah. So if you have any concerns, there's the last slide. Yes, that's the website, has a ton of information. That's the email of the Plan Ventura team. That is my personal email. If you feel like you want to talk to me about something specifically associated with general plan. And then, yep, June 6th at 6 p.m. is the next meeting. So, yeah. There's a lot more to be said because there's a lot more to be said about the city.
Yes.
But yeah, I'll leave it there for now. And
Maybe John wants to ask one question. Is that okay?
Tricky question, if you don't have the answer, that's fine. Was the Moon Drive overlay
have you heard of the Moon Drive overlay?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah, it was
Jo-
discussed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
John was asking if the Moon Drive overlay section has been discussed, and Betsy confirmed that it was. Question.
Have they decided what the max height, like, are they still gonna allow like 6 stories and 5 stories?
Max height, has that been decided anywhere in the city yet? No, it's still up for discussion, but it will be decided when the general plan is confirmed. That will be, the max heights will be determined in all different areas, right? That will be written into the plan, yes. And as you know, if you've been following the MCC, we've been concerned about building heights in our neighborhood for a long time. Okay, so we have now moved on to our final agenda item, these maps, these big maps that were printed for you. So if you don't have one, make sure you get one in your hands because it's going to be hard to see the map. Our secretary, Lisa Gasaway, will come up. So Lisa Gasaway is not on the GPAC. No one on the Montalvo Community Council is a GPAC member. We have been to GPAC meetings to advocate for our neighborhood, but we do not sit on any of the committees, okay? So this executive plan that's been put together is separate from what Carbo was just presenting. This is created by the MCC, and Lisa Gasaway will explain. Thank you so much. Do you need help with slides?
I'm just going to have the map up there, I think, and I'm going to read through the other items. So there is actually a handout with our executive summary as well. So we felt that Johnson Drive is an important area for Ventura. And it's a very complex area, right? The Johnson Drive corridor. So if you look at that map, Johnson Drive is not just the pink area where Johnson Drive actually is. It goes all the way across almost to Victoria. So when people come to Ventura, the first thing that they see is the Johnson Drive area. So it's kind of the welcome to Ventura. We want to make sure that that is well represented. And as we said, it's complex. This area has a lot of small businesses. Somebody mentioned that over here. We don't want those to be ignored. Housing, it's, you know, as Carver mentioned, there are state mandates that we have to build housing. So we can't argue with that. A lot of housing is going to go into our area. So what we thought was we should create our own map. The GPAC committee gave 4 choices for maps, and we like pieces of each of those, but not all of them. So I think we felt that they were asking us to approve one of those, and actually in that survey it seemed to ask you which one you liked the best, and really none of them worked. So that's when we got together and we got a lot of community information and created this map. I know it's very small. You guys have a copy of it here. But what we did was we took all of the community input over the past few years. I guess February 2021 is when the GPAC started for this cycle. And we've had some of the GPAC folks here talking to our community, asking what do we like. It's a nice dreaming thing. What would we like to have here in the Montalvo area? And so we initially, because we felt we were under the gun, we were just going to summarize that information, send it to the GPAC. They graciously agreed to give us additional time, so we had an additional meeting. You had the dates up there. I don't know which one it was. But so that was perfect. So we had some additional time. We sent out a survey, got 74, I think, or 75 responses on the areas that we weren't so sure about, or new things that we hadn't talked about in previous meetings. And so quickly I'll run through that survey. And that is, so transit-oriented development, okay, that is a hot item, and we did have Don Dyer-Sheehan, who's a developer, in one of our community council meetings. It was on Zoom. You can go back and watch that. So there are housing issues, we get that, but we felt that we wanted to ask our community what they thought of transit-oriented design. So transit-oriented design development is anything that can be near a Metrolink or some kind of train transportation. Problem is, this Metrolink we know only has 3 times per day. You know, it's not a big stopping point. It's really the end of the line. We're not even sure if it qualifies for transit-oriented development. But we asked our community, 54% said no, and then a large percent of people were just uncertain because really a lot of people don't know. One thing about that transit-oriented development in that area that is gray, it's the number 3 over there. So this is where the Patina building is currently. There's new owners of the Patina building, and they're very open to having housing put there. We have concerns about housing that close to the 101. So one of the items that we have in our executive summary is that we would like to have a 250-foot buffer for any housing to be 250 feet away from the 101 freeway. Offices, there are other uses, maybe even parking lots. That wouldn't be so bad because you're not there 24/7. So we didn't recommend housing, but that is yet to be seen whether that area is going to have housing. So that's undetermined. The Metrolink was discussed recently, so we asked the Montalvo and District 6 residents if they liked having the Metrolink here, or are they okay with having that moved into further east into East Ventura, and 68% said keep it here. As Carba mentioned, SOAR is pretty much, everybody agrees that we don't want to start developing on SOAR, so there was a proposal to open up North Bank Road and have it go all the way out to East Ventura over around Montgomery. It would have to go through SOAR land. In a lot of ways, it's a great idea because that would reduce some of the traffic on Johnson Drive. At first, it seems like it's a good idea, but then are we opening up a can of worms? If we put a road through there, the farmer's going to want something for it. They're not going to want just a road on their property. They're probably going to want some kind of development. So our community also agreed. 60% said no. The majority said no. The on and off ramps we've talked about a few times tonight. Thankfully, we have some movement. 95% of our community agreed that those on and off ramps need to be addressed before the housing is completed. The 350 so units over at the Willows that are already in progress, but if you look at our map, there's going to be additional housing put in. Could be 1,000 plus housing units in this area, so those the on and off ramps have to be addressed. 95% people agreed with that. So max stories. We had come to the conclusion that we thought that 4, which is an already approved housing element, 4 stories maximum would be reasonable. Our community, 65% said they wanted 3 stories. So nobody wants more than 4 stories to be built. And then we additionally put in our executive summary that where those 4-story buildings are adjacent to existing residential housing, we wanted to taper down to 3 stories and to 2 stories rather than having a 4-story building next to a 1-story residential home. Design quality 88% of our community said that it's important. We've seen a mix of buildings that are very stark or monolithic. I know that's my opinion, but in terms of the character of Ventura, mostly everybody wants to retain the rich character of the city of Ventura, beach town, and not make it look like, oh, you just came back into Orange County or Los Angeles. So that was the survey that we did. After that, we had a working session, and some folks who are here tonight joined us for that, and that was great. So that's when we actually came up with the details for this map. And I'm just gonna give you some highlights on the map, and then you guys can ask me questions. So whenever we say mixed use, that is gonna be some kind of housing, that's gonna be some kind of commercial buildings, commercial or retail, either underneath or at vertically or horizontally. But housing is gonna be a large part of that. So everywhere that you see mixed use, think housing. So we gave ample opportunities for that. We also thought that, office and R&D would be great in that little patch of orange that is so close to the highway. That is, oh, okay. Everybody can look there. Because, again, that's in that 250-foot buffer zone. We also took it a step further and said everything north of the Santa Paula branch line or the railroad tracks, there should be no industrial, okay? That's residential area. And one thing to keep in mind, again, there's a lot that I could talk about, but one thing to keep in mind is, if you look at this, you might worry, what's gonna happen to all the existing businesses? We're worried about that too. So we did put in our executive summary that the city should consider incentives. Some cities have done a great job with having business districts. San Clemente is one of them. So the other thing is the existing zoning is going to stay the same. It's really up to the building owners, right? Just because we have said we're okay with housing or multi-use, mixed use in a certain area, it doesn't mean that it's going to happen overnight. It's really up to the owners of those properties. So the existing zoning would be grandfathered in. No one's going to have to leave. In reality, though, there's probably more value for the owners to have 4-story buildings. So that's why we had to be realistic, and we had to say, okay, if you're going to do 4-story buildings and you're going to do housing, this is where the community thinks that it would be best. So I think I covered almost everything. Let me just check. We also talked about central space areas and parks, and that's it. Anybody have questions? So one over here.
Can you briefly discuss the California mandate for the 2-story addition?
The density bonus.
4-story caps?
Density bonus. Thank you for reminding me. So whenever we talk about 4 stories, we, the community council, we are saying inclusive of a density bonus, okay? Because mixed use 3 is not 3 stories. It's actually, I'm not even gonna go there because I can't. What is it, Carb?
Mixed use 3 is 5 stories.
Okay.
But then it could be 7 stories.
Yeah, so let's just say mixed use 2 because we're really putting it out there that we want no more than 4 stories. So mixed use 2 would be 4 stories in our current zoning, but because of the density bonuses developers get if they build affordable housing, they could add 1 to 2 additional stories, so then we would have 6 stories. So instead of everybody having a secret language that mixed use 2 really means 4, but it could mean 6, we just said 4 means 4. Just, keep it simple. So when we say 4 stories, we mean 4 stories, and that's what we tried to communicate to the GPAC.
I feel like I need to make a clarification.
Yes.
In no way has this map been accepted by the city or the GPAC. This is a recommendation. This is something that the Montalvo Community Council has created and sent it as our best effort to explain what we believe the community in this area has expressed to us. That's our job as the MCC, is to try to collect the information from our residents and then use the voice, the power of our title and our organization to then put forth the voice of the people. But this has not been accepted, right? It's been recommended, it's been read, it's been discussed a little bit. Some people on the GPAC said, I think the MCC has put together a reasonable map. Other people on the GPAC don't agree with this map. They have concerns or they want to change some things on it. So the only way that, if there are things on this map that you agree with and you think the city should accept, you have to express that. You have to send an email, you have to be able to speak up, and we will try to continue to educate you about when is the time for us to speak up. Because while Carba is willing, and Kyla is willing to go and discuss every area of the city, we're only asking our community to stand up for our neighborhood. We're not asking you to go to every meeting. We're trying to aggregate and tell you when is the right time to go, and here's what they're gonna be discussing, and you tell us what you want related to that.
Absolutely, yeah. And along those lines, we're going to continue to show up at city council meetings and promote this. We're going to try to get time with our council folks to go over this and to make sure that everybody understands what we're promoting. Yes.
And I want to make it clear, we really have to thank our community council for putting out everything they've done. I mean, everybody, including Matt, allowing us here in the. Absolutely. You guys have been really working your bums off, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Furthermore, what Cassie said, the word has to be spread out. When Seth was up there and only 10% of people show up for our community, that's pretty pathetic. So when Seth said, if the East End does, or the West End doesn't like this, they can shift it to here. That means that they can shift their debris here, and we can shift our debris there. So it's critical to spread the word to everybody. And then last but not least, where's the Santa Paula line? Train line. Where is the Santa Paula train line?
On this map, if you see in red, it says future plan walking path. Which is very cool, actually. There is a walking path.
John Ritchie's not on the community council, but
He is. He's a member at large.
At the GPAC, she said.
John's like the engineer, so
Yeah.
definitely, a high five to John.
Yeah.
Everybody's very instrumental.
Well, we're at 8:20.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Thank you.
8:21. Thank you, Lisa. Lisa's the secretary of the MCC. Betsy, our treasurer, is here. John, a member at large, is here, and then we have two members at large and our chair who weren't able to join us tonight. But thank you to everybody who came. We really appreciate your time. Yes, and so many things that we learned tonight need to be passed on to others. It's recorded. We've recorded this. It's on the blog, so anybody who wasn't here tonight can go back, scrub through to what they want to hear.